Planned a heartfelt proposal with ducks, ended up reclaiming cats and rebuilding my life, while my ex demanded the cat back. At the start of this year, I was meticulously planning the perfect proposal for my then girlfriend, 34, who I absolutely adored. I'm 32, and I'd always held this conviction that I wouldn't propose to anyone until we'd been together for at least 2 years. It was almost a rule of mine growing up, something about really knowing the person before taking that step. So, for our 2-year anniversary, I arranged an unforgettable long weekend in Cheshire, UK, a secluded log cabin in the forest, complete with a hot tub, scenic nature walks, amazing food, and, of course, our beloved dog Leo. As soon as we arrived that Friday, I didn't waste a moment. I tossed our bags in and hurried to set up my little surprise in the hot tub. My girlfriend was crazy about ducks, so I bought dozens of mini rubber ducks and one giant one with "Will you marry me?" written across its back. As soon as she saw it, I got down on one knee and delivered a speech I'd written and memorized countless times. She said yes, without hesitation, and the euphoria that followed washed over both of us. We called our families, and everyone shared our happiness. The rest of the weekend felt charmed, and even as the high faded into our daily routines, we both started gently shaping dreams of our wedding. How big should it be? Where? Who would we invite? Alongside it all, each of us continued with our own therapy. I was confronting the shadows from my past, childhood trauma, a suicide attempt from 2020, my tendency to become defensive in arguments, a habit I'd picked up from my parents, and ever-present feelings of being undervalued or unloved. She was working through ADHD and lingering wounds from an abusive relationship. Suddenly, everything collapsed within a single week. One evening after a brutal day at the office, I felt myself spiraling inward, teetering on the edge of a panic attack, silently fighting a war in my own head. She picked me up from the train station. She could always sense when I wasn't okay, but I couldn't get the words out. Once we got home, I was just focused on peeling off the day, getting rid of my bag, the coat, taking Leo's harness off. She made a lighthearted joke, something like, "Do we have to go to work tomorrow?" I responded with a flat, monotone yes. It wasn't rude or harsh, just the product of a mind in free fall. But to her, it felt like an attack. Instantly, her tone shifted, and she became passive-aggressive. I knew I'd upset her, but I was still drowning inside. She told me she couldn't believe I'd spoken to her that way. I apologized, but it was probably a hollow apology. I was still lost, just trying to function, not processing her joke or the situation at all. She withdrew, turning her attention to dinner, while I retreated upstairs, collapsed on the bed, and let the panic attack take me. I ended up passing out, still dressed from the day, the exhaustion swallowing me up. Later, she texted to say dinner was ready, then followed with stonewalling noted. She hadn't even checked on me, just carried on, ate dinner, took a bath, went to bed. The next day, she left for work early. She's a nurse, while I worked from home, settling in as usual with emails and chats before moving on to the household chores around midday, emptying the dishwasher, vacuuming, wiping the counters, preparing to take out the recycling. I noticed a pile of papers on the dining room table, belonging to both of us. I sorted through them, trying to figure out what could be thrown away. That's when I found what I thought was a letter from her to me, a sheet of paper she'd filled with journaling and emotional processing. My eyes zeroed in on a single line: "I don't want to marry someone who bullies me." My chest caved in, the tears came fast. Darting between the dining room and kitchen, searching for any emotional anchor, I noticed her engagement ring sitting on the kitchen counter. She'd taken it off, left the journaling there for me to read, while I was still drained and battered from panic attacks. Desperate, I took a photo of what I thought was a message to me and texted my sister. "What do I do?" She urged me to come stay with her and take some space. In those lonely hours, I was unraveling, barely communicating with my fiancé, making a mess of everything. She called me out, and she was right. I scribbled my own note for her, telling her I got the message loud and clear, then left for my sister's, weighed down by guilt and grief. Fortunately, I had a therapy appointment scheduled for the next day, and there, it finally hit me. My relationship had become toxic for me. I'd been sidestepping my partner's triggers, unable to bring up anything that troubled me because of her RSD, rejection-sensitive dysphoria. It meant that any attempt to communicate concerns felt impossible. I would instantly become the villain in her story, punished and silenced, with no opportunity to share what I was thinking or feeling. Her history of abuse twisted every disagreement into a battle I'd already lost. When we finally sat down to talk, I laid it all out. Through therapy, I had realized she kept punishing me for things she misinterpreted, never asking about my side, never letting me explain or be understood. I told her that being unable to bring up issues, or suggest changes, left me feeling like the relationship was poisoning us both. I confessed that I was the only one initiating dates or time together, planning trips to the cinema, dinners, theater nights, outings with my family, while she never reciprocated or planned anything. It was as if she'd already checked out, even though I was doing everything I could to keep us moving forward. At the same time, she was going through her own battles, having just switched jobs, struggling to transition back to adult community nursing, navigating the uncertainty of waiting for ADHD and autism assessments. I tried to help her adjust, drawing on my experience at a neurodiversity-centric company. My intentions were good, but I see now that I tried to make changes without involving her and understanding her immediate needs. I should have done better. I know neurodivergence is a superpower, and as a fellow neurospicy person, I felt I should have understood her struggles better. The fallout was immediate and cold. That next week, our dynamic shifted from a loving partnership to mere cohabitation. She completely withdrew, isolating herself in her room. Thankfully, we already had separate bedrooms due to our mutual sleep issues. I focused on protecting my own mental health, taking daily walks, immersing myself in Krav Maga, and keeping busy with work, to keep from spiraling deeper. Then, one Monday, she ordered a safe to the house, solely to lock away her journals. The finality of it hit me like a punch to the gut. On Wednesday, she had her therapy appointment. When she came back, she basically laid everything out for me. She told me straight up that she no longer trusted me. She said it was unfair that she had to be the one putting effort into our relationship by planning things for us to do together. She let me know how hurt she felt that I'd taken a photo of her journaling and sent it to my sister. She brought up how I would talk with my colleagues who have ADHD, autism, and RSD, and how their partners supported them. She compared it to her discussing my childhood sexual abuse with someone else. It stung. Then she accused me of running with the ideas from my therapist, that things between us were toxic and that she was punishing me. But then she dropped the real bombshell. I'm a self-professed nerd and I love technology, so I'd built a whole smart home. That included cameras inside the house, mostly to keep an eye on our dog and our 6 cats, but also to deal with some issues we had with neighbors who were part of a gang. I thought I was protecting our little family. After a visit to my sister, I had a long, honest phone call with my mom. I poured everything out, what had been happening in my relationship, why I saw my sister, all the struggles. I even mentioned that we had found her final engagement ring but hadn't picked it up yet. I admitted to my mom, I'm glad we hadn't gotten the ring yet, given everything going on. Then my fiancée told me she had used the cameras to listen in on that private conversation. She eavesdropped on me confiding in my mom. In that moment, every last shred of trust was destroyed. She kept trying to hurt me, bringing up old arguments, but I was too shocked and numb. I shifted into logical mode. All I could think about was how I'd have to move out. So, that's what happened. We broke up. That very day, I packed the essentials, called my dad, and he drove over to pick me up. She had bought the house, so I had no claim on it, just my belongings and what I could carry. The next 4 months, I lived with my parents, saving up for a deposit on my own place and enough for a second-hand car. Therapy became my lifeline during those months. Strangely, it was a huge relief. I realized how much I'd already grieved the relationship after the week before. It was as if I'd lost all the love before it was even officially over. The only thing left connecting me to my ex was our promise that I'd take 2 of the cats we'd adopted together once I had my own house. When I finally found a place, I asked her for the cats, but she refused. She said that since I hadn't paid for them while I'd been gone, something we'd never discussed, she wouldn't let me have them for their benefit. I knew she just wanted the last word, the last power move. I couldn't fight anymore, so I blocked her everywhere and cut off all contact. Now it's the end of December. I've got a new job, earning more money. I'm living in my own house, another smart home that I set up myself. My dog Leo is beside me, truly my best friend now. I feel lighter, so much happier as 2025 comes to a close. My mental health has been up and down, a real yo-yo, but I'm stronger, thanks to my family and the people who stood by me. For 2026, I'm shooting for 6 months sobriety, and I've decided to work on my revenge body after the weight I put on. I'm honestly optimistic. For the first time, I feel genuinely content being single and safe from everything that came before. 2 weeks into January, I'm woken by my phone buzzing itself off the bedside table at 6:14 a.m. unknown number. I let it go to voicemail, take Leo out into the freezing dark, watch our breath hang like fog as he sniffs the hedgerow, and I tell myself I'll deal with whatever it is after coffee. When I come back in, the message is from a woman with a soft Midlands accent who says she's calling from a rescue, that they scanned a cat brought in last night and my name is still on the microchip. Could I ring back please? I call. She tells me the cat is safe and eating. He's thin. Skittish. They found him near a housing estate, no collar, no injuries, and he's called. And she says his name and it punches straight into a part of me I had boarded up and painted over. I write down the address and I don't even finish the coffee. The rescue is in a converted farm outbuilding with hand-painted signs and a dozen laminated posters about flea treatment. Everything smells of disinfectant and warm biscuits. A volunteer leads me past sleepy dogs and a chorus of offended meows to a smaller room where there are 2 pens with blankets and hidey boxes. He's in the left one, wedged into the back of the box like he's trying to disappear himself, and when he hears my voice, say his name, he does that slow blink he used to do at home, the one that always looked like he was humoring me. His fur's greasy. There's a nick in his ear that wasn't there before. He comes forward like a slinky when I hold out my fingers. We found him near a main road, the volunteer says. Chip said he was yours. If you want to reclaim, it's a small fee and we'll need to update the details. My brain races to all the ways this could explode. I can hear her voice in my head already, the way she'd turn this into yet another cross-examination, the way every action would be graded, punished, no square inch of grace spared. For a second, I see myself backing away from the pen, inventing a reason, choosing the tidy, empty version of my life I've just built. Instead I sign the paperwork. I update the address. I tuck him, outraged and swearing like a sailor, into a carrier I buy from their little shop because I hadn't thought to bring mine. When we step out, the cold air hits us both, he goes quiet. I cry in the car park with my forehead pressed against the steering wheel, not out of sadness, just that wild surge of relief and gratitude and fury all tangled into one messy knot. Leo stands in the boot and whines until I apologize to him for making him share. I spend the rest of the day prepping the spare room like I'm hosting royalty. Litter tray in the corner. 2 different foods because he was always picky. Water fountain humming. I put a fleece blanket down that still smells faintly of our old house. I found it in a box marked miscellaneous when I moved. He hides under the bed for 6 hours while Leo lies on the landing, an earnestly useless guard, tail thumping whenever he hears movement. At 11 p.m., when I'm half asleep on the sofa, I hear the tiny bell from his collarless neck, that whisper soft pat of cautious feet, and then he's on the arm of the sofa, eye level with me, and he gives me a single, unimpressed meow. I hold my breath. He headbutts my cheek like no time has passed. We fall into a new shape around each other. The dog learns that cats don't like being licked directly in the eye. I buy a scratching post and tuck it by the window where the winter light pools, and I watch him rediscover sunbeams like someone flipping through a favorite book. The house feels different with the extra heartbeat. Less echo. Day 19 of being sober hits me like a train, and for the first time since I quit I think, this is actually hard. Not the white knuckle of the first week, not the autopilot of just not doing it, but the way an invitation to a leaving do lands in my inbox and my hand goes to my phone to message a friend I used to call when I wanted to disappear into vodka and darkness. I don't. I lace my boots. I go to Krav and I take punch after punch on the pads until my forearms hum and my lungs burn and the background hiss in my head quiets to a manageable whisper. When I get home, the cat is sprawled on his back in a sun patch like a tiny dead emperor and Leo drops a toy at my feet. I make peppermint tea. I sleep. Somewhere in the middle of that, the jeweler calls. He's gentle. He says my name like he's trying to cushion it, tells me they've had the ring back from the workshop for weeks because the design was finalized, that if I don't want it, they can credit the deposit to something else. I thank him. I say I'll come in. It's a Tuesday afternoon, rain stitching the sky to the ground, the kind of gray that feels like it leans on you. The jeweler remembers me from the day we chose the setting, from how excited we were. He does that careful empathy smile that doesn't condescend. He opens the little velvet box and there it is, exactly as it was supposed to be, elegant and bright, a promise captured in metal. It is so strange, standing there looking at an object meant for a future that never got permission to exist. I don't feel sick. I don't feel much at all. I feel done. I can have this melted down, he says, if you want to make something else with it. I think about the rubber ducks on the hot tub, the way hope can be pointed and ridiculous and still sacred. I think about carrying my own story on me, not hers. Could you make a small pendant, I ask, a tiny duck? Nothing flashy, just something I can hold when I forget that I am allowed to laugh again. He grins like a conspirator. We can absolutely do that. 2 weeks later, I pick up a duck the size of my thumbnail. It's stupid and perfect. I thread it onto a plain chain and it sits against my collarbone like a private joke with the universe. On the drive home, the clouds break and the late afternoon throws gold across the wet roads, and I feel like my chest has been unlatched from the inside. Of course, the first email comes the day after that. Not from her directly, she's still a ghost in the machine, but from a Gmail address I don't recognize with 3 lines that read like a solicitor drafted them during their lunch hour. It demands I return her cat. It references dates. It's accusing without quite accusing. My hands shake. I close my laptop and walk Leo. When I get back, I hand the phone to my dad over video call, and we talk through what is actually happening versus what it feels like is happening. The microchip has my name. The rescue transferred him to me. He's safe, he's indoors, he's registered with a vet, and he's asleep in a sunbeam as if this problem and the entire concept of email has never concerned him. I reply once, short and kind. I say I reclaimed the cat legally through the rescue. I include a scan of the paperwork. I do not explain. I do not defend. I add that any further contact should go through official channels. Then I mute the thread and I take myself to the gym. Nothing else arrives. No court letter. No police at my door. A week passes and then 2. Work is a different planet now. My new boss tells me I don't have to ask to take a lunch break like I'm requesting a holiday, which is such a low bar it's practically subterranean, but I mark it as a win. I get asked to run a workshop on accessibility because I won't shut up about it in meetings, and the day of, I catch myself telling 20 people that making things easier for brains that work differently doesn't just help them, it helps all of us. I say it and I realize I believe it and I feel that little click of alignment, something in me lining up with something outside me for once. On a Friday night in February, I take Leo and the cat to the vet for checkups and vaccinations, and we end up in the waiting room next to a woman with a French bulldog in a jumper that says drama. There are 2 kids playing I Spy with a poster of a skeleton dog. Everyone is tired. It smells faintly of antiseptic and ham. The door opens and for a split second the world narrows, because the person who walks in behind us is wearing her coat. The one she wore all last winter, the camel one that made her look like an expensive detective. My brain does this horrible rabbit run around itself, and then the woman turns her head and she isn't her. She has different eyes. Different mouth. Different life. My knees wobble with the adrenaline of a threat that never existed. I laugh, relieved and shaky, and the woman with the Frenchie laughs too and says, "Long week?" And I nod and say, "The longest," and we all breathe again. By March, my mornings are a ritual I don't want to jinx by describing too much, like if I say it out loud it'll vanish. It's not magic. It's porridge and dog hair and the cat yelling at me to hurry up with the wet food, and my back hurting slightly from overdoing it at Krov on Wednesday, and the kettle hissing. It is the absence of chaos. It is room to think. I am 38 days sober when I hit a wall at 4 in the afternoon and sit on the kitchen floor and cry for no reason other than my body needs to let something out, and I don't explain it away, I just let it happen, and I text my sister a photo of Leo trying to sit in my lap like he's a Pomeranian. She replies with a photo of her kid in a pirate hat, and that's enough to turn the tap off. On the first warm Sunday of spring, I take Leo and the cat, in a harness he hates with every fiber of his being, into the garden, and we all sit on the steps while the world starts itself again. The neighbor over the fence tells me the street is doing a community yard sale in April and would I like to join. I say yes before I can overthink. That, more than anything, feels like a confession. I am intentionally stitching myself into place. There's a moment, late one night, when my phone pings with a notification from an old account I forgot to log out of, one of the smart home apps I used to use. It tells me a device has been accessed from an unknown location. My chest goes tight, palms sweating. It's probably nothing. It is probably exactly what it is. I breathe, and I delete my old account, and I write an email to myself that just says, "You are allowed to choose peace over proof." Then I go to bed and I sleep. I don't know if any of this is moving on in a way that would sound cinematic if you set it to music. It's more like turning my face toward whatever is gentle and true, over and over, even when it's boring, especially when it's boring. I keep finding tiny pockets of good, the way the cat goes heavy in my arms when he's fully relaxed, trusting me with his whole ridiculous self, the way Leo picks up on my mood faster than I do and noses my hand under the duvet when I wake at 3 a.m., knotted with nothing. The way my dad says "proud of you, mate," like it's always been obvious and I was the last one to notice. I never thought a year could hold both proposals and police-adjacent collars and reclaimed cats and a duck round my neck that feels like a lifeline. But here I am. It's mad and ordinary. It's mine, and tonight, I'm making pasta with too much garlic and sitting on the floor because both animals have taken the sofa hostage, and I am sober and tired and loved in a way that does not require shrinking to fit. That's not the ending. That's just dinner. And for now, that is more than enough. April arrives disguised as a bruise that keeps blooming and then laughing at itself. The yard sale starts before 9 with the kind of cold that sneaks into your shoes and settles in your ankles, and the whole street is out, pulling card tables into front gardens and arguing about float coins and whose bunting looks the most like a small seaside town. I put out a box labeled cables, mysteries, gremlins, and a pile of mugs that have survived 3 house moves and 4 versions of me, and an old robot vacuum that Leo hates like it owes him money. Kids appear like smoke and the smallest one hands me 30 pence in warm coins for a tangled charger with the solemnity of a blood oath. There's a lemon drizzle cake that keeps losing slices and gaining compliments. A man in a flat cap tries to barter me down on a jacket that already looks like a compromise. It is ridiculous and neighborly and more healing than anything with a worksheet ever has been. Around midday, I see it. Not on my table. 2 doors down, propped between a stack of DVDs and a box of hair straighteners, a yellow grin the size of a helmet. I don't understand it at first. I know this object like a scar, but it's in a different light, the handwriting scuffed and faded to a ghost of itself. Is that for sale? I ask too brightly, like I'm trying to buy a time machine. The teenager running the stall shrugs. Came from my nan's clear-out, mate. Quid. I hand over a coin that feels heavier than it should. When I flip it over, the black marker on the duck's back is half sanded away by some well-meaning charity shop volunteer, but I can still see the echo of my question under the varnish. I take it home and sit it in the bath, and the cat sits on the closed toilet lid and math eyes it like it's a problem set. I scrub gently with a non-scratch sponge until the last of the words lift off, and then I dry it, and, because I am a sap and because I am newly allowed to be ridiculous on purpose, I write in small letters on its spine, "Just keep laughing." It lives on the shelf above the washing machine now, the quietest, yellowest guardian angel, and sometimes, the cat yells at it because he thinks it's judging him. A week later, the rescue call comes again. Different voice. Same soft Midlands tilt. "We've got another cat registered to your name," she says, "brought in last night. He's at the vet, he's stable, he's had a knock with a car we think. Can you come?" The way my stomach drops is immediate and organized. I don't ask questions that invite answers I can't bear. I grab the carrier. I tell Leo he's got guard duty. He takes it as seriously as any Labrador can. The animal hospital smells like bleach and cooked chicken. The receptionist says my name, and the second I say both cats' names out loud, the vet's eyebrows do a tiny lift at the coincidence that isn't a coincidence. "He's lucky," she tells me in the consult room, and I sit on the plastic chair with my duck pendant between my fingers, worrying it until the edges are warm. His pelvis is bruised, not broken. His paw is stitched. Inside the clear front kennel, he looks like he's borrowed someone else's life and isn't sure where to put it. When he hears me, he flattens his ears and swears, offended at the entire concept of consequence. We can discharge him to you today, the vet says, if you can keep him contained for a bit. It's either that or he'll climb the curtains and undo all my good work. I sign the forms. I pay an amount that stings and feels righteous. They ask about insurance. I say I'll sort it. They tell me he tried to eat the bandage, then fell asleep halfway through the attempt. It is exactly him. At home, I turn the spare room into convalescence central, blankets and a litter tray and a soft cave and more apologies than any creature needs. The first cat sits outside the door and narrates his entire internal world like a radio play, while Leo takes up sentry on the landing again, tail beating a metronome against the skirting board. The new patient eats the way you eat when you've remembered that you are not, in fact, a ghost. He glares at me with pupils like saucers and then he headbutts my wrist so hard I swear and then it's fine. We only cry a little. I email the rescue a thank you that is basically a prayer. They reply with a smiley face and a photo they took when he arrived, burrs in his tail and his dignity in tatters. We'll update the microchip to yours, it says. He's yours. There is, of course, admin. There is a little cascade of phone calls and hold music and that uniquely British ballet of politeness over bureaucracy. The chip company wants a signature. The vet wants a consent form. The rescue wants a donation if I can manage it. At no point does a ghost in a camel coat appear in a doorway, and I am thankful in a way that feels like a superstition. A letter arrives a week later with a new registration card, both cats under my name, in a font that looks like the school report that finally says doing well. Work swells quietly around all this. My accessibility workshop somehow becomes a roadshow and then an invite to Birmingham for a conference with a name longer than my arm. The email has uppercase and bullet points and a keynote speaker I once watched on YouTube when I couldn't sleep, and I immediately want to say no because hotels have minibars and I am a person whose brain likes to press the worst possible button if you make the button shiny enough. I say yes. On the train north, I hold my duck pendant like a talisman every time the drinks trolley rattles past, and I drink elderflower cordial like a Victorian child. I stand on a stage under two honest lights and I talk about ramps and captions and how kindness baked into systems is cheaper than kindness retrofitted by exhausted people at their desks. At the end, a guy in a corduroy blazer comes up to say his son got diagnosed last month and my talk made him cry in the middle of a lecture theater. And I laugh and then he laughs and then we both look at our shoes until it's less embarrassing. That night I walk past a bar with a neon sign that says good times in letters the size of regret, and I go back to my room and eat crisps on the floor while watching people make risotto badly on TV. It is not glamorous. It is perfect. Day 61, still sober. Back home, the convalescent gets his stitches out and immediately tries to climb the bookshelf. The other one has developed a fascination with the washing machine and sits in front of it, mesmerized, while my pants parade past like a parade of flags. They relearn each other in hisses and insults and then in mutual sun worship on the hallway runner. Leo looks at me like a dad on a camping trip who's just realized his tent mates are gremlins. I make apologies to him in the shape of long walks and throwing the ball 37 extra times and letting him lick yogurt lids with an air of ceremony. One afternoon in May, the unknown device notification pings again. It is a different app this time, one I haven't thought about since I peeled the sticky pads off a sensor and felt the relief of the little white square giving up its station. My body does that thing again, the old alarm firing even though the building's been demolished. I stand there with my phone in my hand and my heart kicking like an idiot, and then I do the boring, grown-up thing that used to feel like cowardice, and now feels like a superpower. I deactivate the account. I take the battery out of the last smart thing that doesn't spark joy. I put it in the drawer with the instruction manuals and the paint sample cards. I walk into the garden. There is a bumblebee doing a little drunk routine in the rosemary and the cat is stalking a dandelion with murderous focus, and I say out loud, like I'm writing it on the inside of my skull, I am allowed to leave rooms I don't want to be in. Summer begins on a Tuesday, the sort that ambushes you in the morning and then apologizes with a very polite breeze at 4 p.m. I hit 90 days and buy myself a ridiculous blue ice lolly from the corner shop that stains my tongue and my self-control and I let it, and then I ring my dad and he says proud of you, mate, and I say it's only 3 months and he tells me I've always been a pessimist with style and we laugh so hard I scare the cat into knocking over a plant. I dry my duck pendant and the world keeps refusing to end. There's a small batch of goodness after that feels like the universe has finally passed me a glass of water. My sister drops by with her kid in a cape and we make a den between the sofa and the coffee table and Leo lies inside it with the solemn duty of a sentinel. The French bulldog in the drama Jumper appears again at the vet, this time with a cone and a look of existential despair, and her owner introduces herself properly and we exchange numbers under the apparent pretext of swapping walking routes, and then she texts me a week later a photo of a field of buttercups and I text back a photo of the cat sitting in a shoebox and looking like he might sue me. In June, the conference email becomes an invitation to consult on a product and I say yes without looking around for permission that is no longer relevant. I take a day off work for no reason other than the forecast says 22 and the words uninterrupted visibility and I sit on my back steps with my stupid yellow guardian and 2 cats who have forgiven the universe and a dog who has never decided anything other than joy, and I let the sun do its small miracles. The only wobble big enough to write down comes on a Saturday night that looks like nothing. I am not bored. I am not sad. It is simple and therefore tricky. The music from next door is nostalgic and my hands are restless and the thought lands as lightly as a feather and as heavily as a falling piano. You could have one. You could have two. Nobody would know except the you that has to wake up tomorrow inside the head you've built. I do not make tea. I do not journal. I put on my trainers and I run to the gym and I hit pads until my arms sing and then I lie on my back on the mat and I stare at the ceiling and I cry a bit and nobody makes it a thing because it isn't. I go home and both cats greet me at the door like I insulted them personally by leaving and Leo brings me a sock, as if it contains an apology. I go to bed and in the morning the craving is gone and the way a storm leaves and a bird carries on with its unexploded song. In the middle of all this, because the world likes a plot twist even when you don't, the charity shop down the road puts a photo in their window of unusual donations and there, front and center, is the giant duck again, this time with a small sticker on its beak that says sold to the man with a nice dog. I walk in and the woman behind the counter claps her hands. You're the duck man. She says, like it's a promotion. It made everyone smile this morning. I tell her that is exactly its job. She asks if I want a loyalty card and I say, without thinking, yes, please, because I am collecting tiny, ridiculous ways to belong. It turns out there is an ending to this part of the story that isn't an ending at all but a widening. The cats now do a synchronized breakfast performance that involves me pretending I don't know the exact time and then pretending they weren't already in the kitchen 10 minutes early. Leo has decided the garden bench is his, but only if I'm sitting on it too. The duck pendant has rubbed a faint mark on my chest and I like it. The rubber duck on the washing machine collects lint on its eyebrows and looks perpetually surprised at the amount of laundry one human can produce. My phone buzzes sometimes with news I didn't expect I'd ever get. A colleague recommending my name for something. My sister asking if I want to come to the park. My dad sending a picture of a robin on his fence with the caption "Look who's back." And none of it requires me to shrink or apologize for existing. It is mad and ordinary. It is mine. Tonight, I am eating a peach over the sink because it is too juicy to trust, and there is cat hair everywhere and a dog asleep at my feet and a yellow duck staring down from its ridiculous perch, and I am sober and tired and stitched into a life that doesn't punish me for breathing. This isn't a moral or a montage. It's Tuesday. It's almost dark. Somewhere, someone is putting on a coat that isn't for me. Somewhere else, someone is baking a cake for a yard sale. In my house, a cat is asleep with a paw over his face like a scandalized ant. The other is snoring, barely audible, and Leo's paws are running in his dreams. I turn the kitchen light off and it clicks in that very normal way that feels, right now, like fireworks.